For everybody who's coming in, welcome to our chit chat. We were just discussing how everybody always asks if the webinar is going to be recorded and nobody ever watches it. And we were talking about all these ways you could put the transcripts into AI so that you don't have to do it. But Miranda was saying it's like intentions, it's long. I think we just need like a little more micro videos
Mhm.
because I don't
Like a
have an
highlight
hour.
reel, like a highlight reel of the
Yeah.
webinar.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun in here today. Someone even has their AI recorder here, so they're like jumping ahead. They could
Yeah,
write
there
some
you go.
emails and listen to us, so that's kind of
That's
cool.
funny.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
dig that.
I love it.
All right. We've got about 30 people so far joined, which is exciting. And we've got a lot of people registered too. So I'll give people like a minute and then I'll give my spiel and then get out of y'all's way. And I didn't think to until like 2 minutes ago to have walk-up music. I almost played K-pop Demon Hunters for you, Ryan, but I didn't think about it until too late.
Yeah, so fun fact, I was keynoting a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I jokingly was like, "Oh, it's got to be K-pop Demon Hunters." I have three little kids, and it was a hit, obviously, because it's just such empowering, wonderful music. But I think like people's immediate reaction was like, "Is this grown man really coming out to a K-pop Demon Hunter song?" And the answer to the question is yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Does it sound golden or is it the soda
Yeah,
pop?
no, it's every one of
100%
the
it was
Kind of.
golden.
segments.
All right, because soda pop is also awesome.
Yeah, no, they're great. My daughter still doesn't know that I'm messing with her, but I told her I was going to dress up as one of the characters and trick or treat with her and the rest of the 9-year-old girls. And she's like, "Dad, please don't do that. Like, it'd be great if you were nowhere near us at this moment in time." So,
My daughter is going to also be her and her two stepsisters. They're going to be Rumi and Mira and Zoe. And then my ex is going to be manager Bobby and his wife is Celine. She tried to get me to dress up as the tiger. And I'm like, what does that say about me? Why do you want me to be derpy? Like, what?
yes, Charlie, the biggest way to improve retention in your business is to watch K-pop Demon Hunters, and everything will be okay.
100%.
All right. We got a big agenda today. We got a lot of stuff to get through, so I'm going to get us started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I am Elena Heffley, and I'm the Director of Customer Marketing here at AppQs. We've got a really fun group, as you can already hear, for those who have joined us for our chit chat, to talk about something that is super difficult, super misunderstood, super challenging across CX, product marketing, really across all of our businesses everywhere, the customer journey. Before we get into the details of it all, I want to call out the elephant in the room, which is you all took an hour out of your week that you probably don't have to take out of your week because you know there's a leak somewhere. You know that somewhere in your customer journey, there's a hole. Maybe it's between trial and conversion. Maybe it's after onboarding. Maybe it's the decision a customer has to, the moment that a customer makes a decision between renewal and churn. But chances are you've got leaks that you know about, leaks that you don't know about. It's not because anyone's doing anything wrong. It's because we're using these like very neat, pretty linear customer lifecycle, customer journey maps that fit beautifully in a deck that tell us trial, conversion, activate, retain, expand, as if it's that simple, or as if people act like that, but people don't. They come in, they leave. They come in, they get frustrated, they get value, they leave, they come back, they have an aha moment. And it's those gaps where those leaks start to form. And what we're going to be talking about today is stopping chasing those leaks and starting focusing on moments that matter. Because when you focus on those moments and you build around those moments, rather than building around what you want customers to do, not what they actually do to get value, that's when you can start driving predictable growth. So, quick little agenda about what we're going to go through today. We're going to ground ourselves in some data from our 2025 benchmark study that we did in July and August of this year, because that data tells us a couple of really interesting stories around the leakiest parts of those life cycles. We're going to talk about how to better understand your customer and how that customer understanding can help you pick the right moments and rally your whole business around what those moments are so that everybody's working towards moving the customers to the same moments of value and we're all speaking the same language. We're going to talk about a couple of particularly leaky moments in the customer journey based on some of the questions that y'all submitted ahead of this webinar. And if you have any questions as we move through, drop them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it and we'll use that to kind of continue to punctuate our conversation. We want to keep this super interactive. So as you've got questions, drop them in. And then at the end, we're going to share a Miro template that will help you bring this concept to action. Because as we go through this, you'll think about moments that you know give customers value early, give them value as they move through the journey. So this will be a way for you to kind of put that into a place that can help you see what those moments are and figure out how to most effectively bring your collaborators along, because that's where a lot of this stuff falls off sometimes. Before we get into it, like I said, we're going to ground ourselves in a little bit of data. And the kind of TLDR for this was that based on the 200 or so responses that we got to our benchmark survey, it's not just you, and no one really knows where to start. So if we think about, if we think about onboarding, for example, 68% of teams say that it's their top priority, but a third can't define activation. So that's a signal that we know getting people to value is important. But what that first value is and how to measure it is still a blind spot for a lot of folks. When you think about retention, over half said that retention is harder than it was 3 years ago, even though we'll see later that GRR rates have actually improved slightly since we last ran the survey. That tells us that we know that focusing on bringing people in is very important, but what we do after that in those mid-journey moments can be the make or break between delivering long-term value and having a customer churn. And then on the expansion side, almost 8 in 10 teams don't have a structured playbook for expansion. So that tells us that even though most of us, if not all of us on this call, have expansion goals, we don't have a consistent moment to really identify and rally around that triggers to tell us like now is the right time and how and with whom and about with what product or additional product or product lines or other brands you want to you should be rallying around to drive expansion. So if these leaks show up everywhere, what are we supposed to do about it? We prioritize based on impact and we get to work fixing the pipes. And we can't really talk about fixing pipes without bringing in plumbers. And we've really run with this plugging the leaks and life cycle and plumbers metaphor, so you're gonna have to bear with me on that. So I'm super excited about this panel. We have Miranda Johnson, who's in client experience at Breezeway. We have Paige Lindsay, who is a senior product marketing manager at North One. Ramley John, who is CEO of Delight Path, and Ryan Berry, who is our CEO here at AppQs. And I'm going to kick over to Ryan to kind of ground us in why we're stuck in this problem, because Ryan, I know this is a topic that's very near and dear to your heart. It's when you talk to customers about all the live long day. So why don't we start there around like why we're stuck here and what we can start to do to change that.
That sounds good. Thank you, Elena. And hi, everybody. For those of you who haven't had a chance to meet yet, as Elena said, my name is Ryan, and I joined AppQs earlier this year to lead the business. And so if you're a customer, and I think most of you are, and I haven't had a chance to meet with you, please get in touch with me because I would love to talk to you and get to know you. I joined AppQs because I'm really passionate about this problem. I've been an operator, a CRO, a president in the technology industry for a very, very long time. And I always had this problem of like, if only I could get my customer exactly what they need in the moment in which they need it. Or if only I could scale the best person in the sales department or the CS department and the marketing department and have them show up in every meeting. And I think increasingly that is possible. And so I talk a lot about like the technology we use, but also the way we think about our people and our processes and how we can show up for our customers. And we're going to attack nonlinearity in our conversation today. But the truth is we have linear funnels for a reason, right? Because we want to be able to see from they don't know who we are to an MQL to an SQL to their trialing to their converting till they're renewing. We want to be able to see those conversion metrics, want to be able to isolate them so that when we experiment, we can say, oh, when we did that lever, did it change something? Like as an example, we just recently made some changes to our website and we wanted to see like, does it actually change our conversion rates? And so that linearity is important here, but the reality is no one is linear. We're all going through our own journey. We have our own bosses, our own jobs, our own things that we're trying to navigate. And I think increasingly with all the advancements in technology, there's a really wonderful opportunity to show up at the individual level for customers and meet them where they are, based on who they are, based on where they are in the journey, and based on what they have or haven't done. And my colleagues and I at AppQs are really passionate about solving that problem at scale, about understanding who someone is, where they are, and what they haven't done, and delivering a message to them to either create awareness, to drive adoption, or to drive engagement that's going to help drive growth in the business. And so I'm not the founder of the company. I was brought in to actually transform the business, but I just really am passionate about this problem and really excited today to speak to several of my colleagues that I have the pleasure of partnering with of their perspectives in very different businesses. You know, Miranda's working in a really cool business at Breezeway that's at the intersection of building management and people that work in buildings and using a really complex, taking a really complex problem and using technology to solve it. And Paige is doing a lot of great work in the fintech space. And Ramley has a lot of exposure of working with businesses across all stages and sizes. And so I think today you'll have a pretty good cross-representation of expertise and perspective. And we encourage you folks to get as much value out of this conversation as you can by asking questions. We'll answer them all. And we have plenty of time for that throughout the conversation. And then Elena will certainly facilitate it afterwards. But we're going to be talking a lot of these moments today. And so I think without further ado, let's just dive in. Let me go to the next slide for me, Elena. Cool. So I think like we're chasing growth. I mean, I sit on a board and everybody wants to grow more, spend less, and do it faster. It's like a pretty obvious thing if you're in a boardroom. And I think a lot of times what happens is those directives come down in organizations and it's like, okay, now what the hell do we actually do about that? Um, and the most annoying part of my job was that pop-up just that. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that like the things that I want to really focus our conversation on in the first part of our meeting is like, first of all, we have to understand our customer. If we understand them and who they are and the fact that they don't just exist in our category, well, then we can get in their heads a little bit. We can understand the tensions that they face in their role. And then it's really about understanding how do our best customers behave and how do we get all customers to get there quickly so that we earn the right to keep their business and so that we earn the right to drive expansion and to get to introduce them to new products and services and new offers and so on. And so I want to start with a topic that's very near and dear to me. And I'm going to tap Ramley in to get us going with me on this. But I think it's really important that you understand who your customer is. And I mean that from two vectors. And Ramley, jump in here in a sec. Like the fact is people don't just consume a category. So all of you who chose the time to lean in today, maybe you're a product marketer, maybe you're a lifecycle marketer, maybe you're a product manager, maybe you're a customer of AppQ's, maybe you're a rival. I don't really know, but that doesn't define you, right? Like you have family and friends and other interests and other dynamics around your job. And I think too often companies think in this very myopic way of like, oh, that's Paige, she's a product marketer. And that's who she is. And it's like, well, that's actually not true. And I think understanding that is really key. But I think a lot of businesses also just don't understand who their customer is. And so we have this like very ambitious desire to help everybody, but that actually that hurts our unit economics quite a bit. And so Ramley, from your work, like how are you seeing businesses, in technology getting really crisp on who their customer is on a holistic basis before we even get into moments?
Yeah, I think this is such a core question. I love the research you brought up. Around 68% of people say onboarding is important, but a lot of them don't know how to measure activation. And it's a challenge because you look at Facebook, what is activation? Oh, we add 7 friends in 10 days. And yeah, we got to find something like that. We got to do some quant analysis, get into regression models and all that things that requires a lot of heavy analytical knowledge, a lot of assumptions. And I think Ryan, I got to give you a shout out because you're exemplifying what it truly means to understand your customer is talk to them. Is it get on a call with them and understand what they're struggling with. And maybe your team's already doing it. You have a sales team, you have a customer onboarding call, and like just getting on a call with them and like understanding, hey, what keeps you up at night? What gives you nightmares? What is your metric that if you don't meet that, you could get fired? Like things like that, and truly understanding the challenges they're having there in terms of the pain point. But on the other end, like you mentioned around how do you measure activation, and we talk a lot about making it clear, some kind of metrics, but I love looking at qualitative stuff. There's this test that actually the co-founder of Maven, there is an education platform. She coined this term called the eyes light up test. It's essentially if you're teaching somebody something and their eyes light up and they lean in, that's a moment in your webinar or a moment in your education or your workshop where you're like, yes, this I need to do it over and over again. I took the same content from education, applied it to activation, and look at your sales calls and onboarding calls and your one-on-one calls, and look at those moments when your customers literally lean in. The eyes get big and they say words like, what the heck? What have I been doing with my life before this? And I think those kind of moments are qualitative measures of activation success. Of course, you can validate it with data after, but start with one thing. Start with those eyes light up moments, those magic moments that we're gonna talk about for the rest of the chat. So I think that's, if you want to truly understand your customers, talk to them. I know a lot of the introverts here, like myself, like, oh shoot, now I have to actually talk to people, and yes, you do. I think that is something we have to do to truly understand our customers.
Yeah, and there's so many signals, right? Like whether you're a B2B or B2C business will depend on, if you're using Gong or if you're using NPS surveys or other engagement tools, other survey platforms to understand. That's my background before coming into AppQ's. But I think what Ramley said is one of the biggest hacks is like actually get on a plane and go break bread with people and listen to them and understand their world. And I think a lot of times those of you working in lifecycle or marketing or CX are inheriting a problem that starts here, which is, oh my God, AI is changing everything. We need to build an AI strategy versus what is our customer problem? What are they trying to achieve? Who are they? And now how do we use AI, which let's be really honest with ourselves, is now the commoditized table stakes platform in which businesses are going to run on. But if anybody thinks their business is AI and isn't working for Anthropic or OpenAI, it's a little tricky. So if you focus on the customer and their hopes and dreams and their problem, the ideas are going to get easier. I mean, I'm just going to give you a real example. I've been on the road a lot lately with Bernie, who's our head of product, and we're not pitching features. We're just like understanding and listening. And there was something that we thought we didn't need to do that through that conversation, we're like, ooh, we were missing something major in our strategy. And now it's like quite clear to us what we need to do. But also like every customer base isn't going to be, everybody is a customer success person or everybody is a product marketing manager. I feel that in my business here at AppQs, like we service a lot of different departments, right? It depends on where life cycle and activation sits, candidly, on who our customer is. And Miranda, if you don't mind, I want to tap you in on this because you have a really interesting, I wouldn't say divergence, but you have two distinctly different customers that you're essentially facilitating attention with. And so how do you balance that tension? And maybe just for everybody's benefit, explain the two different personas that I'm describing here and some things you've done to kind of meet those folks where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So Breezeway is very niche in a great way. We service short-term property management. So if you book an Airbnb or through Booking or Vrbo, whoever owns that property, or if it's through a property management company, it's very different than if you book a hotel room, right? So all of the things that have to happen for you to go stay in that property, there's a lot of background. So Breezeway is that operations tool that gets those tasks sent out. So we do. Actually, one of the first things I did when I got to Breezeway was I mapped out our customer personas. We have 25. So I have a lot of different personas I'm dealing with. And that's based on role type, what they do in the platform. Are they an admin? Are they someone out working in the field? So a representative. And that's really where things get sticky. So I'm B2B in that I'm talking to my other businesses, but I'm also in a way B2C because I'm talking to the people in the field. So getting them to adopt. So that's one of the big reasons we're with AppQs is I have folks that are at a desktop all day, but I have folks that are on a mobile device all day because we have a native app. So for us, it's really diving into the data and figuring out where they're struggling. And for our reps, a lot of that is these are vendors, these are plumbers, these are cleaners, these are maintenance guys. Their tech IQ isn't as high as a property manager or me for say. So keeping things super, super simple for them, an easy pop-up that's also not disrupting their workday because they're cleaning a house, they're fixing an AC, right. they're busy and they don't want to go through a huge tutorial or watch a video or anything. They want a really quick, I need to click this button so that I can get paid. So those are my two really distinct groups. I have folks that are on a desktop that need to schedule hundreds of cleaners across counties. These aren't all at one property. A lot of my property managers, they have houses that are across counties, across states. They might be in multiple different markets. So they have to coordinate all of that and making sure that one, they understand how to do it. And two, that they're not missing really key things in the platform that helps their job. So yeah, we balance that with one, keeping our messaging super tight to the persona. Like if we have a feature that's coming out, we're super tight to that persona. And I did a lot of work cross-functionally to define those personas. It was across product, across our CS team, all of our go-to-market leads of saying, okay, have your teams fill these documents out. They talk to the customers, like answer all these questions about each persona. And the cool thing was where we found gaps was across all the teams. We had the same gaps. So that let us really dig into where we needed to define better data about those customers.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. I just think that tension is so real. And like we might live in our bubble and like what Miranda's describing is a bunch of people who are working in a van who need to like make moves to the next job. And like, how do you catch that human being in stride? And I think that comes back to like understanding customers, but also being able to leverage your data to act. And that is something that I just think if you get your data sets together, it can really help you. I mean, we're doing some experiments inside of our business now of taking clay enrichment data to experiment with more personalized experiences. Like if someone likes music, can we engage them with something that's like personally unique to them? But also, I think this is something a lot of the AI native products are still getting wrong, which is like missing the opportunity to understand Paige and Paige's interests and what she likes and whether she wants to prompt or be fed prompts or what have you. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, which is kind of crazy if you think about like the mistakes that are still being made in these AI native products. Quick shout out, if you want to read how not to build AI products, go search up the horseless carriage article. It was like a very famous tech article about 4 months ago. I think it will give you some things to rethink. Okay, so we're going to transition to, I call this next topic magic moments. I think I might have made it up, but whatever. I'm hosting this webinar, so I can make it up. Magic moments. I've had the opportunity over my career to work with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of large brands. I've worked in a bunch of businesses. I've consulted with a bunch of businesses. And the amount of companies who understand what their best customers do to be successful and run their entire motion at it is way too low. And once you do that, it's such a big unblock for everybody because you can work better cross-functionally, the customer experience improves. Easy to say, hard to do. And so Paige actually was telling me when we were preparing for this is a project she recently ran through in her business. And so Paige, I'd love for you to explain to us like how you got around understanding those key moments and then some of the people and process dynamics that you organized around it, and then maybe some of the results that you had inside of your company.
Yeah, happy to jump in here. So when we started redefining our customer journey with the magic moments we started with more of a time-based customer onboarding journey and recently changed that whole experience, like Ryan said. We went back to the foundation of what outcome are we trying to achieve as a business, but also pairing that with we are not a business without our customers. So bringing in what we know about our customers and what we're trying to achieve as a business. And then looking deeper at, okay, we have this huge mass of customers. So North One is a business checking account for small and medium-sized businesses in America. And we have people working in construction and we have people working in beauty salons. So very different personas. But we took a look at all of our customers and then identified our ICPs and personas underneath that. And we talked with our customers. Are you getting what you want out of North One? What are your pain points? Are there any other financial platforms that you're using? Why are you using those with North One? And trying to figure out, okay, what can we do to get more of their business on North One? So what I did was a reverse journey map and I identified, okay, here's the point of activation that I want to get customers to, like Ramley mentioned, this is when customers' eyes light up. This is their aha moment and they discover the value of our product. And I worked backwards through the steps of what gets them to that aha moment. And an example that comes to mind is Spotify. I think their aha moment is setting that personalized playlist for the first time to their customers, but there's steps that it takes to get to that personalized playlist so that Spotify knows more about that customer to then provide that playlist. The customer has to sign up. Maybe they have to search a certain artist or listen to a certain number of songs, like 2 songs, dislike a song, to then get to that end result. And so that's how we went about setting up our magical moment onboarding. And also, like Ramley, Miranda, and Ryan have all mentioned, talking with customers was really important, looking at Hotjar recordings. How are they using our product? Are they running into any bugs? And yeah, like why did you choose North One? And I will shout out our data team. I was really lucky to work with our data team and say, how are our current customers, our current ICPs using the product and getting to that aha moment?
I love it. And so after you get the data, you have all these understandings. What were some of the adjustments in terms of how the growth motion, the retention motion had to change? Because I imagine there was some process changes around this. Like any examples come to mind?
Yeah, I would say it starts with getting buy-in at the leadership level and then bringing together the company as a whole and saying, okay, here's our business. These are the business outcomes that we want to drive. So how can we align teams across product marketing, customer support to drive all of these key actions and actually create a cohesive customer experience? Because we found that what we were pushing customers to do through product marketing was not necessarily the experience they were getting in product. And so something really exciting that we released recently was our product team went and they made an onboarding experience similar to how we were communicating in emails and external messaging like SMS and push notifications, and they embedded it into our experience. And I was able to test out something similar through app queues, which took me a week to launch. And creating a personalized journey for our customers and say, okay, this can actually work. It's not a one size fits all. Our customers all expect something different. They joined North One for different reasons, and our product was able to take that test that we ran in AppQues, validated through AppQues, and make it into a truly like embedded experience. So yeah, I would say like leadership buy-in, and then aligning customer moments to business outcomes, and telling an internal marketing story to teams like outside of marketing, talking about, okay, here's what we did, here's why we did it, what we learned, here's what our customers are saying about it, here's how we can improve it and what's coming next. And yeah, we were able to uncover some misalignment in our customer journey, and yeah, it's been a good learning experience, and we're still learning and iterating today.
There's something really cathartic about understanding that misalignment, though. Like, so I actually, I was saying this to Paige offline. Like, I actually recently was part of this project here, and we, like you, we had the benefit of, and shout out to John McCarthy. You're not going to see John on many webinars. John's our head of finance. I love John dearly, but he ran a regression to say customers who stay long, who grow their spend, who promote, what do they do? And we codified it down to 3 things. And what I realized is the same thing you had, Paige, was like product is like a little bit over here, marketing's a little bit over here, CX is a little bit over here, and then it's like confusion. And once we had that unlocked, similar to you, and a benefit of, I guess, the job title, there's not many, by the way, but this was one benefit. I could sort of say, okay, so now we're going to run our CX motion, our product motion, and our customer marketing all at these 3 moments in the journey, because it's what our best customers do. And I think, like, if you think about customer success, which I know some of you on this phone call work in customer success departments, I believe it's your job to make your customer money, to make them grow, to make them more successful. And so that was sort of like, oh, if our best customers, the ones who are getting promoted, the ones who are making more money are doing this, then how do we make sure every single customer gets to that place? And that is a really important cross-functional unlock. But when marketing, product, and CX are running at the same problems, it's really magic what can happen very quickly. So Ramley, you do a lot of consulting with technology companies. So where did these projects go wrong from your experience? And what's some advice you have for people to maybe invert this? Because obviously we're talking about it in retrospect. Paige, we made it sound a little easy, I think. But like, where are some of the things that like where people go wrong?
I think people go wrong where they don't do what Paige did. Like, I gotta give Paige a shout out. Like, whatever you said there was like, figure out the success. Like, okay, where they go wrong is like, oh, let's figure out what tools we need, and let's just do some stuff with adding product tours, or what are our competitors doing? Why don't we change our onboard? Oh, what is Spotify or what is Duolingo doing? And like, whoa, like that's you're skipping the core foundational things right at the get-go. Like, I'm just gonna echo step by step what Paige said. First, figure out what success is for your users. What is their jobs to be? What do they care about? What are they trying to do with your product? Like, what is that aha moment? What is that ice light up? And milestones. The next thing I heard is exactly what I do for clients, and she called it reverse journey map, and I actually use the same word. It's like, now let's reverse engineer the journey and the steps that got them to that moment. And Ryan, what you said, what are our best customers doing in that path towards success? And of course, it's not linear, like what you said. It's not necessarily linear, but they all go through similar milestones. What are those milestones? We have to understand that, and kind of mapping out that journey from the end all the way to the beginning. A lot of companies I work with, they do not do that foundational stuff. Either they're too busy, they're not aligned with things, there's misalignment internally as to what is a success. Because I said this before, the reason why terrible experiences exist is because of terrible alignment across teams. Like, it starts internally. Like broken user experiences are a result of broken alignment internally. And I think if you don't get that foundational stuff, you're not going to be able to pick the right moments, and you're not going to be able to successfully guide users towards their success milestones.
Yeah, I think that's dead right. And for those of you who aren't in a position of like you're a VP or what have you, I have some empathy for you, and I just want to maybe give you some empowerment here. Like, the amount of people who come into our funnel at AppQues, and I have this firsthand experience because I was doing Matt cover this summer, so I was managing our sales team, so I was involved in a lot of like new business stuff. And we want to get key feature adoption. We want to announce new features. We want to get onboarding done. on paper makes a ton of sense. And I remember just the sales team wanted to kill me, but I'm like, what do they mean by that specifically? And the amount of times that board members or executives are like, go fix this thing without empowering the person to actually understand the current state and then think through what improvement would actually do to the P&L is pretty profound. And I think my advice to everybody who's like maybe on the receiving end of some of those orders is try to pause to really understand the current state and what any improvements would do. Because otherwise, it's really hard to quantify the outcomes of the work that everybody's doing. Or if you need to bash some heads together to change process or what have you, it's hard to drive that alignment because it's about a project versus about a business outcome. So it's just something I see quite a bit. So before they can get to magic moments, and I am committed to making magic moments a thing, by the way, so please join me on this. They have to get set up, right? And every business is a little bit different. That's why I think like having Miranda and Paige here is like such an interesting contrast. But they've got to get set up, whatever the basics of that means. They've got to get onboarded. But they also likely found you because of a search word that your marketing team was promoting. And so there's probably a thing in their head. So I want to go to Miranda next. Like, Miranda, how do you balance the linearity of I need my customers to get to this place with like where their energy actually is?
So one thing I've started doing, and Brian, you know this because how we came to AppQs, we're retooling our onboarding right now with a mix of Arrows, which is a great tool, onboarding project management tool through HubSpot, and then we also are using AppQs for this. But one thing that I've tasked my team was like, we have this great moment that's our like key activation moment, but I know our product has so much more. So what is valuable? Like, when do you see those magic moments happen? And what magic moment did they buy for in the beginning? So one thing we do on the marketing team is we watch a lot of our sales team's demos. And that's what we ask. Like, what was the magic moment? Why did they buy? And using that information is how we've started to personalize our onboarding, is like, what is that moment? And one thing I'm getting ready to build in AppQs is a onboarding survey. It's like, hey, so happy you're here. What's the main thing you want to do today? And doing it jobs to be done, which is a key thing in the onboarding world, is jobs to be done, to drive them down that path to get them to that moment of value faster. Because what we're finding is just focusing on that one activation moment that is very important to us. We know that's what makes a customer sticky. We're seeing it's not working as well as we'd want it to, like calling us out. So we're really keying into this. Why did they buy? What was the reason of purchase? And getting them to that moment quickly. We're in a unique position that a lot of our customers who buy are the ones setting up the tool. That's not always the case. I know that. So that's unique for us, is that a lot of the people who purchase Breezeway are the ones that are also setting up Breezeway, or at least they're part of the process. So we can really hone in on that. But even if they're not, that would be when I was doing onboarding for AppQs, that was a key thing that we asked, is like, why are you here? What are you trying to do in AppQs today? Because a lot of times your user that's the person purchasing is not the person setting up. And that can be where things get really sticky.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I want to contrast this. So you have an interesting business like mine, which is a hybrid of, you're using your technology to onboard people, but you're using humans. I love the survey idea because it captures intent, and then you can use that intent to spin off in a lot of places. So Paige, you have more of a pure PLG motion than maybe both Miranda and I do. So I maybe contrast a bit of what Miranda said and some of the things that you and your team are doing to get customers set up for success.
Yeah, so we did do the survey route a few months ago, but that's since been depreciated. And now we can use information that we know about our customers before they even apply for a North One Business checking account. Did they come from a blog? What paid ad did they come from? What messaging were they engaging with? And then there's also information in the application that our customers have to answer to then open a North One account. So we can use that information to personalize their experience and get them to the aha moment faster. And it's also, we look at how they use the product and, what are they engaging with? What are they ignoring completely? If they're sending and receiving money, how are they doing it to then personalize their experience more? So using the data that's available to us, but then
Right.
also implementing that personalized human touch point that I think a lot of customers are craving right now, especially because everyone's like, oh, AI, which I do
Right.
think AI is great, but I think people want that customer feeling and touch point. So when a customer joins, we also reach out to them and offer a one-on-one onboarding call to our ICPs or a webinar where multiple of our customers can join for our non-ICPs.
I like what you say too about this human connection thing. I mean, it's one of the things that I'm inspired by. Is like it's not just about digital experiences. It's about knowing the right moment to get people together, humans, just like this. I mean, I wish I was in a room with all of you actually hanging out, but like when to get people together, when to do like a live training, when a person in your CX org should just pick up the phone. And I think those integrations across different systems are going to enable some of that. But yeah, it can't just be, I mean, there's a lot of really wonderful things that I think agents are going to enable us all to do across the production and the workflows that we have. I mean, it's obvious, but I think that that frees us up to spend our time doing other things and being in those places, which, which really motivates me. I mean, one of the other things like that I think is real, and Miranda, we were talking about this a little bit last week, but like someone comes in to do something very specific. Like we had a customer recently that came in like, all we want to do is launch NPS surveys, but also we have these other problems. And I think that's a really important tension to manage of like getting them what they need now, but holding the tension of like, okay, you bought whatever you bought, or you signed up for whatever you signed up for this reason. So how do we get you what you need now, dopamine, and then keep you down the tracks of sort of where you're going? So Ramley, I'd be hard pressed to talk about onboarding without talking to you. I think you've written 100 books about onboarding. But talk to us like, where do you see companies that are nailing their onboarding motions across both PLG and sort of hybrid motions doing well, and where do people really stub their toe?
Yeah, I just to build on what I've been hearing is like those surveys, some of the best in class product-led companies, like even sales-led companies, and I try to copy what real world and make it into a self-serve product-led world, and I watched like the best salespeople in the world. I know some are in AppKeys. I've met quite a few. Katie, shout out to her. Obviously there's other. Oh man, I'm forgetting their names. But what they do before they even get into the demo is try to understand what are the problems they're facing, what are their goals, and I think nailing that in the self-serve experience is the key, because how do you use that to get to the aha faster? I heard from Miranda, you have 25 personas. They might have 25 different aha moments. They might lead to different path in the product, and somebody's aha might not be your aha. Like even an app use, like their goal is trying to onboard users is totally different from the goal of somebody who is trying to announce a new feature to existing customers. It sounds similar, but the language might be different. And I think even asking up front, what is your goal in signing up for our product? Sounds like friction, yes, but I've seen the best products do that. Spotify does that, Canva, even SalesSide. Even if you sign up for Salesforce right now, they ask you what is your goal, or HubSpot, right? And I think that's like for me when I see that, my heart sinks, because like we've been talking about jobs to be done. Essentially, it's what are your customers hiring your product as a job to do for them, and just asking that up front you can guide them quicker to what they truly want, and they just told you what they want, which is amazing. So
yeah, I think that's right. Like, and you're going to be able to do this in an increasingly more conversational way, which is great. But I think the other thing about like the multiple persona tension is this brings me back to a previous life of mine. But like, just because someone has the same job title doesn't actually mean anything. Like, you could have one product marketer who is super technologically forward, designs stuff and lovable, is creating pages and prototypes and understands how to use systems, and another person who's maybe more of a strategist, but they're not as technologically savvy. And like you would treat those people very differently, right? So if you have more of a sales-led business, that's like, oh, great, sales, you should be leading with professional services, because that customer might not be ready to engage with software. And I think particularly as we keep coming up to new adoption hype cycles in technology, we can't assume everybody's as tech forward as maybe. I mean, I'm a pretty tech forward dude. Like I try stuff as soon as it comes out, but I always had to remind myself, like, there's varying degrees of disconnect on that for folks. And like to project that just because you're a founder or you're growing a company, that everybody's going to be at the future, it's wrong. And I've actually probably cost myself a lot of money of assuming that in a previous life. So understanding not just what the job to be done, which I think is existential. Like I love that both of you have talked about jobs to be done, because that's what it really comes down. It's the same thing as talking about problems. Like if you understand that, all the innovation and solutioning gets a lot easier. But also like the qualitative, who is somebody is going to matter. Like particularly like Paige in your business, it's money, and everybody has a very different relationship with money, and you have to understand that in order to meet them where they are. So we're having a lot of fun. I'm realizing we're almost out of time, which is pretty cool. So I wanted to switch gears, and there was actually a question in the chat from Alyssa that sort of was a nice segue in this. Okay, great. So we got them their first dopamine release. We got them set up. We've run them at the things that our best customers do. Now what? And I was hoping she was still here so I could shout her out publicly. But there was a woman who was on this webinar. Her name's Courtney Sembler, and she ran a lot of HubSpot Academy for a long time. So follow her on LinkedIn because she puts out some really great stuff. But she coined this concept of everboarding. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting her last week and having a chat with her. And I absolutely loved her framing around this because it was essentially saying like everything always changes, right? So Miranda, we talked about like the thing they bought us for now, but like reality happens. Maybe they got bought. Maybe their husband or wife lost their job. Maybe they got promoted and now there's a new person. Maybe the person who bought it in the first place's job is completely changed, or the company's goals have completely changed, and now it's all about a new product line. And I think like that concept of continuously knowing where they are and what those jobs are is really important, because that's not going to be a standing still point of view. And so that's just like I wanted to just share that with everybody, because I think, particularly as a lot of support deflection software comes into place, a lot of tools like app queues keep scaling across channels and moments in the journey, you then start to ask yourself the question, where do we use our CX people? Where do we use our support people? Where do we use our professional services people? And I first think of value realization as the key job, but then it's like, onboarding doesn't ever end, in my opinion. So it's like maybe a provocation there, but that's why I loved Courtney's provocation around everboarding so much. But Paige, I know you've done some work with this, and Miranda, you have as well. So I'd love to talk to you too about this concept, because I think so often it's like now they're onboarded, now let's sell them something new. But how do we keep relevant and keep knowing what's on their mind? Maybe Miranda, you can go first, and then Paige, you can jump in afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. We type a lot of data about what our customers are and aren't doing. And then we are using that data. So in terms of what features haven't they interacted with, what things in the platform aren't they doing, because we do have a wrap up of what like our average customer is doing, what our most successful customers are doing, and then we're using that to build those moments within the platform for them. Like, hey, you're doing great with scheduling, but you're missing this other piece of it. You should go check this thing out. And then once they start doing those motions, it's helping us learn when and where they should get more of our expansion products. We have 4 different product lines. So it's like, okay, they're really honed in on our scheduling tool. They're using it. They are top notch on it, but they aren't using our messaging tool, which pairs really well with our scheduling tool. So now it's time to start talking to them about this tool, because they're using the other one. Or if they're using messaging and our ops tool, they're not using our 24/7 assist tool, which can talk to their customers for them. Pairing that data with what they're doing and what they could be doing, and showing them how all of our other customers, I sit on the marketing team to have to shout it out. We have so many great customer stories. We're cranking out case studies like almost every week is a new one that we've talked to a great customer and what they're doing. So we're able to use those value points, like, look at what these other customers can achieve. You can do that too. So that's a big way we're doing it, but I know it's really hard. I think there was a question in the chat when you're smaller and you don't have the data there, but you can get there. Like especially if you are using a tool like app queues, where you can start just easily tracking events of just like, what buttons are they clicking? What aren't they clicking? Right. You can use that of where do we expand on them, especially if you have a moment that they're not doing that is key for them to be successful. You can start talking to them about that moment. But yeah, we're just very, very, very data driven.
Yeah. And I think the point of like, if you don't have a lot of data, I love that you went there, because that was a question in the chat. Like, I think start with going and chatting with people because that qualitative data is going to really guide you pretty far. But I think the other thing is just be willing to experiment, right? Like you can experiment and measure what's lifting and what isn't, and you can do that in a pretty rapid way, like different headlines, different touch points, different steps. But I like the idea of also using surveys to like constantly re-engage people. We have a customer here, they're a travel company, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed that they do is just go on a journey. We book a trip to Italy this summer, and then we don't book another trip. What they're then doing is they're saying, oh, they booked this 6 months ago. So it's right around time where they're thinking about their summer vacation. They're not going to go to Italy again. And they might think of us as the company who helped them with their Italy trip. So then they'll just send them a text like, hey, here's what Jessica in San Diego did with her family. They went to Egypt and they saw the pyramids and sort of giving them that inspiration of like the art of the possible. And I think that that's like knowing what someone has done historically is a good opportunity to know like, okay, it might be time to engage them. In a B2B context, it's easier because it's like, when's their budget cycle? Right? That you could then presume that's going to be their time where they're doing their planning and they're coming up with their priorities. And so it's a good time to ask them questions and to understand that. So Paige, what about in your world where it's kind of more purely PLG? How are you navigating this concept of always keeping them engaged and keeping GRR at the center of what you're doing?
Yeah, I like what you said, Ryan, about constantly testing and iterating because that's something that we're currently doing right now. I think we have a really strong path getting them to activate, but now we're focused on like that long-term retention. And I always say like, we don't know what we don't know. So testing out different messaging, different features at different points in the customer journey through different channels. Maybe what works for one customer doesn't work for another. For example, like we have a virtual debit card and a physical debit card. And as much as we beat a customer over the head, like, please use your virtual debit card, here's all the value props, 10 different emails, 5 text messages over a 6 month course, maybe they never are going to use the debit card because their business doesn't work like that. But then we learn and say, okay, this construction customer and other customers like this do not tend to use virtual debit cards. So then we can try the next test. Say, okay, let's try a physical debit card, or it looks like they send check payments more than they use cards at all. So I would just say constantly testing and iterating, and then always reorienting your marketing towards the customer. So one of the things at North One and one of our value props is getting customers to their first revenue moment where they're actually making money by using North One because they get cash back and APY the more that they use our product. And that's from there, we're able to create stickiness
Right.
because our APY feature, they have to spend $500 on their card to unlock APY each month. And so like resurfacing that every month as they unlock it or letting them know, hey, you haven't unlocked it yet, but you're close to unlocking it. We found a lot of engagement there and people continuing to use their card and unlock APY. But yeah, I would also say like look at what gets your customers to that moment that you're trying to get them to. Like what did they engage with? What feature did they use to then get them to the secondary feature you wanted them to use, and keep bringing in that messaging or that experience and recreating it in different ways.
I love a lot. I love this. It's like also this dopamine, and I think like here you've earned points, and now here's some money, and it's just like it is a reminder of like we're a lot. Probably half this call is running B2B products of some sort. We don't build enough psychology and dopamine into the way we think about our journeys, and like we're still people that are at work, right? So like I encourage you to experiment with some of that. Is there incentives? Is like to Elena's point in the chat around social proof is an opportunity to get you to meet with somebody else. Like I was having lunch with a customer in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and here's a person who's on a journey to digitally transform a non-digital company. What does he want to do? He wants to learn from his peers. So how can you recognize that as part of a customer journey and get him in that conversation? And your brand can be the one who hosts that party, right? And so it's just like, no, again, it goes back to knowing who the customer is and where they are in the journey. So we're talking a lot about like keeping the customer engaged, but we all have big R&D teams. We're innovating. We're putting various things on our product. We're launching new lines of business. We're buying companies. We're doing things to make the value we can provide our customers better and stronger. But so often innovation fails. For those of you who don't know me well, I spent a lot of time in consumer insights before coming to AppQs, and there was this stat that everyone used to throw around: 95% of new innovations fail. It was a stat from Nielsen, and it's probably more true now today than ever. You spend a lot of time and money in innovation. Now, there's a lot of reasons, right? You don't know your customer. Yeah, Elena and I both used to work in consumer insights. If you don't know your customer, then you're not going to focus on the job to be done. Therefore, your innovation is going to be some random idea that your CEO came up with in the shower. And you wonder why people don't buy it and why Paige has to market. I'm not saying Paige in her current job, but some version of Paige somewhere has to market something that nobody ever wanted in the first place. So let's assume that's not the case. Elena, go to the next slide for me. We want to drive expansion, but the question is, how do we know when the right moment in time to ask for something is? Have we, where are they in their journey? Have customers like them also adopted this? And before I kind of bring it back to my colleagues here that are going to chime in, I also want to remind us of another human psychology. Think of a product that you bought for a certain reason, and despite everything they've done on TV and on their brand, they're still that to you. I think of SurveyMonkey as an example. SurveyMonkey was a company that anybody could use to go and program a survey and chat to people. And they went really, really out of their way to try to be known as this really credible enterprise grade company with a lot of time and effort into that workflow. But that's really hard to change someone's cognitive change of like, okay, who is this company? I mean, how many customers that I have today that thought we were a tooltip company, despite the fact that we have multiple channels and can orchestrate based off of behavior, but it's like a hearts and minds thing that people have to sort of get out. So that's why there's an awareness component of this. There's a behavior component of this. And I think there's also how do you tap into what your CRM already knows about somebody component of this that people oftentimes aren't utilizing. But Ramley, I'll go to you first. How are you advising your customers to know when to act and when to ask for more, when to ask them to expand their relationship with you beyond the thing that they bought you for in the first place?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. You know, what Paige mentioned, what is that, upgrade path? I've heard it called as upgrade ladder, where they start off with one feature, where do they go towards as well? I think the human component is important. When to act and when to hold back is going to be important. I have this, I don't know if you want to call it a framework or approach. I call it the high-low approach. Like the best time to reach out to somebody by email or by sending them a DM or something like that is either when they're emotionally high or emotionally low. So emotional highs are they reach a milestone and just sending them a congrats, you did that thing. Some of the, Canva does this, some of the best in things. I know this, and to your point, Ryan, you need that behavior data to, that user behavior data, because if they've accomplished something, what great coaches do is congratulate them. And then, oh, here's the next step. So I call it the success, the next strategy, success, congratulate them. And then next, what is the next step you should push them towards? And it's what great coaches do. They congratulate you and, oh, you got to do 10 more push-ups or do 10 more layups or whatever that is. That's emotional high. And then emotional low is when they're frustrated. So when they're getting stuck on something, you can see that through some session recordings, or they're, sending a ticket, or, even something that is proactive would be super valuable. An example I can think of is with Fathom, an AI note taker, where one time I was taking notes for a personal call that I didn't want recorded, so I kicked it out. I kicked out Fathom, and then right away I got an email. It's like, oh, Ramley, we noticed you kicked out Fathom. Was there a problem? Oh, by the way, you can prevent it from recording. It's like, wow, I love this. Like, this is right moment, right time, right customer, right user, right customer, right moment, and right, messaging is how you kind of nail that magic moments, like you've been talking about, Ryan. It's like if you can get all the three things together, person, time, and moment, then it feels magical. So I think that's the other example. So emotional highs and emotional lows are a great time to act.
Yeah, I love it. I love your coaching metaphor. I've used this example with managers that I'm coaching in the past. So I used to play tennis when I was younger for fun. I sucked at tennis, but it was always fun. It's like a great way to run around and get some exercise. So we belong to this swim and tennis club that our kids go swimming at in the summer. And I was like, oh, I want to go and get some exercise. I'm going to go play tennis. In order to get in, you have to play tennis with the alpha. I don't know what his name is, tennis coach or something like this. So I go and I'm hitting tennis balls with him, and he comes to the center of the net and he's like, you need to stop. I'm like, okay. And he's like, change your grip, change your angle, change the swing, do this. And I was like, and then, go back to trying to hit the ball. And as you probably are now going to guess, I swung and I missed. because he put too much in my head at once. And I think too often we're crowding our customers in the same way instead of exactly what Ramley said, like change your risks. Now you got it. Okay, now do the next thing. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. And I think we're all working in some digital business. One of the things that I see screw our customers up is they don't get their data properties mapped accurately. And it's something like we're constantly going to our customers to be like, we should change your install, because if you know what someone's doing inside the product and who they are in the CRM, you can map the properties in. So like, I'll give you an example. Our CX team now knows if someone creates an email campaign. And so that gives them a notification to either trigger an app queue or to call them and be like, can we help you out? But if those data properties aren't speaking, it's going to be quite hard to play offense with that. So Paige, as a product marketer, and we only have like 2 minutes because I know Elena has some Q&A and stuff. What are you going to do? But as a product marketer, how are you orienting like what innovations and new offers are you bringing to whom in your business?
Yeah, I will try to go quickly. So
No, you're
we
good.
have a tiered structure for new product releases. Tier 1 is screaming at the top of our lungs. This is a major product launch. And then we have all the way down to tier 4, which is more of table stakes, and we whisper it to our customers. But I think looking into each of those tiers, okay, we're releasing this new product. Is it relevant to every customer? We recently released scheduled ACH payments. And looking at our customers, not every customer sends an ACH payment. So we can look at the application for customers who have never sent a payment, and they tell us if they send ACH payments or not. So we can use that to know if we should target those customers or not. And also then we can see if they have sent an ACH payment before out of North One. So that helped us know, like, these are the customers that we need to scream this go-to-market initiative to. Because it's probably not relevant for someone who just opened a North One account. And the main thing we want them to do is add funds to their account so they can use it. Probably telling them about scheduling an ACH payment is not relevant because there's no way they could do it anyways since they don't have funds in their account. So that's typically how we look at it, by breaking down what we know about the customer and how they use our product.
Oh, that's great. I think just like who they are, where they are, the size of the innovation. It is like some of that is like just best practice in product marketing, but 22% of teams have a structured playbook for expansion.
Yeah.
So it might just mean your product marketing team's doing something well, but maybe your account management team isn't activating in an intentional way, or your HubSpot instance isn't connected to your AppQues instance, so it doesn't like show up as well as you need to, and like there's some opportunity there. Elena, thankful for everybody. Elena talks faster than I do. Believe it or not, it's possible. So she's going to get us home on time, but I know Elena wants to share a few things and wrap us up. Just on behalf of like everybody at our company, Miranda, Paige, Ramley, it was so fun to hang with y'all. And for those of you who took the time live to join, really just want to say thank you. And I wish all of you a great Halloween and a lot of fun chasing around little K-pop demon hunters in your neighborhood.
Thanks, Ryan. We have a couple of questions that we'll follow up with folks after the webinar because I want to make sure we're able to give thoughtful answers to some of these questions. But one of the things I want to make sure everybody knows is that after this session ends, we're going to be sharing with y'all a moments-based journey mapping template with some guidelines on how to use it, with some ways to think about what your moments are and really interrogate how to get the most value out of those moments, how to rally your teams around them, because we saw a lot of questions ahead of this session around getting internal alignment. So it's going to help you sit down with your stakeholders and identify those outcomes that you need to make an impact. Everybody get on the same page and work towards building programs, plays, ways of working, roles and responsibilities that help everyone. And then the last thing that I want to mention is especially for our customers who are on the phone, you probably already do get this, but we send out a bi-weekly Made with AppQues series, and this will help you with some tactical examples of the plays that we're running to fix our own customer journey, because as AppQues, we have the benefit of building AppQues for AppQues. So we are going about the same exact process like Ryan mentioned. So these are the plays that we're running to fix those leaks that we have in our own customer journey and how we're turning those into moments that actually get our customers to value more quickly. So make sure you're signed up for this if you're not already getting it. I think the next one comes out next week because I think we sent it out. Yes, the next one comes out next week. So make sure that you use this QR code to sign up. We'll also send it in the follow-up. And if anybody has any questions, Ryan dropped his email in the chat, and I'll make sure that that gets to everybody too, because we'd love to spend some time unpacking where you're running into some of these challenges within your own businesses. And as Ryan promised, I do talk faster than him, so that's my spiel. We'll send this recording out to everyone next week, and if anyone has any questions, let us know. But have a great rest of your Thursday and a fun Halloween tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you.